I want to marry you, Chioma. I want to build a life with you.
Uncle Okoro, I appreciate everything you've done for me and my family. I really do. But marriage, between us? Uncle, let's be realistic. You're a driver. A common driver. I'm a lawyer now, or I will be soon. I have ambitions, Uncle. I want to live in Ikoyi, drive a Range Rover, marry a man who wears suits and makes decisions in boardrooms. I'm a classic girl now, Uncle. I need a classic man.
But I created your world. I gave up everything.
And I'm grateful, Uncle. But gratitude is not love. Gratitude is not a reason to marry someone. Please, let's not make this awkward. You'll always be Uncle Okoro to me, the man who helped my family, but you can never be more than that.
They say pride comes before a fall, but nobody warned Chioma that her fall would be from the penthouse of her dreams straight into the pit of her nightmares. The harmattan wind carried dust through the narrow streets of Umudioka village, swirling around the feet of Okoro as he stood outside Chief Okafor's compound. His hands trembled as he clutched the brown envelope containing Chioma's university admission letter, the one he had worked 3 jobs to make possible. His fingers, calloused from years of gripping a steering wheel, traced the embossed logo of the University of Lagos. This was it. This was the moment he had been saving for, praying for, sacrificing for. Chioma, he called out, his voice breaking with emotion. Toma, come and see. You got admitted. The compound erupted in jubilation. Mama Chioma emerged from the kitchen, her wrapper flying loose as she ran. Chief Okafor, though confined to his wheelchair after the accident that had left him paralyzed 3 years ago, wheeled himself out with tears streaming down his weathered face. But it was Chioma who stole the moment. 17 years old, beautiful as the morning sun, her eyes sparkling with dreams bigger than the village itself. Uncle Okoro, she screamed, throwing her arms around him. Is this real? Am I really going to university? Okoro laughed, a sound that came from deep within his chest. As real as the sun in the sky, my daughter. You're going to Lagos. You are going to become somebody. He didn't call her his daughter by blood, but by bond. For 3 years since the day Chief Okafor's taxi had collided with a cement truck on the Onitsha-Wari Expressway, leaving the once prosperous businessman broken and penniless, Okoro had become their pillar. He was just a driver. A common driver, as people in the village would say, working for a transport company in the city. But what he lacked in status he made up for in heart. Every month, without fail, Okoro would send money home. Money for Chief Okafor's medication. Money for Chioma's school fees. Money for food, for clothes, for the little repairs the house needed. He wore the same 3 shirts, rotated the same 2 pairs of trousers, and lived in a single room in Ajagunal, eating once a day so that Chioma could eat 3 times. His own family had disowned him, calling him a fool for pouring his life into strangers. But Okoro didn't care. He had made a promise to Chief Okafor the day he had pulled him from the wreckage. I will take care of your family as if they were mine. That night, as the village celebrated, Okoro sat alone under the Udala tree watching the stars. He thought about the future, about Chioma graduating, about the grandchildren Chief Okafor would someday hold. He thought about how perhaps when Chioma finished her studies, when she became the lawyer she dreamed of being, she might look at him not just as Uncle Okoro but as something more. He was 32 now, she would be 22 when she graduated. It wasn't impossible. People had married with greater age gaps in the village. He pushed the thought away, embarrassed by his own presumption. For now it was enough to see her succeed. The years passed like chapters in a book Okoro read with dedication. Every semester, every exam, every milestone, he was there, if not in body then in spirit and support. He took extra shifts, worked through public holidays, declined every pleasure and comfort. When Chioma called asking for money for textbooks, he sent it within hours. When she needed a laptop for her assignments, he sold his only valuable possession, a gold watch his late father had given him. When she struggled with accommodation in her final year, he paid for a decent hostel in Yaba, even though it meant he would eat Gary for breakfast, lunch and dinner for 6 months straight. Chioma's phone calls were the highlight of his week. Uncle Okoro, I got an A in constitutional law. Uncle Okoro, my lecturer said I have great potential. Uncle Okoro, I've been selected for moot court competition. Each achievement felt like his own, each success a validation of his sacrifice. But something was changing in Chioma's voice, something Okoro couldn't quite name. The warmth was slowly being replaced by a certain distance, a sophistication that came with city life and higher education. She began to speak differently, her village Igbo now peppered with English phrases and Lagos slang. She talked about her friends. Kemi, whose father was a senator, Bola, whose mother owned a chain of supermarkets, Tund, whose family lived in Banana Island. Uncle Okoro, she said during one call in her final year, Lagos is beautiful. The people here, they live differently. They think differently. I don't think I can ever come back to the village permanently, you know? There's so much opportunity here, so much life. Okoro laughed it off. You can visit us then. As long as you don't forget your roots. Of course not, Uncle. I can never forget what you and Papa have done for me. Never. Those words gave him comfort, even as a small seed of worry planted itself in his heart. The day Chioma completed her National Youth Service Corps and returned to the village, the entire community came out to celebrate. She arrived in a taxi, wearing designer sunglasses and carrying a Louis Vuitton bag, gifts from her new circle of friends. She was 23 now, transformed from the village girl into a Lagos woman. Her hair was in long Brazilian weaves, her skin lightened by expensive creams, her nails painted a sophisticated nude color. Okoro had taken a week off work, his first in 4 years, to be present for her return. He had bought a new shirt for the occasion and even splurged on a bottle of perfume, hoping to make a good impression. His heart hammered in his chest as he waited at Chief Okafor's compound, rehearsing the words he had been practicing for months. Chioma, I know the age difference might seem much, but I have loved you for a long time. I want to marry you properly. I want to continue taking care of you, not as Uncle Okoro but as your husband. When she stepped out of the taxi, his breath caught. She was more beautiful than he remembered, carrying herself with a confidence that made her seem untouchable. Uncle Okoro, she said, giving him a brief, polite hug that felt nothing like the warm embraces of her teenage years. How are you? You look well. I am well, Chioma. I am so proud of you. So very proud. The celebration went on into the evening. Chief Okafor, tears in his eyes, blessed his daughter and thanked Okoro repeatedly. You are the son I never had, the old man said, gripping Okoro's hand. Everything I have, even this small compound, belongs to you. You have given my daughter a future. It was Mama Chioma who created the opportunity. Chioma, she said, take Uncle Okoro and show him your certificates. He has worked so hard for them, he deserves to see them first. In Chioma's room, surrounded by her university memories, photographs of her at parties with friends at the law school graduation, Okoro finally found his courage. He reached for her hand. Chioma, he began, his voice shaking, I need to tell you something. These 4 years watching you grow, supporting your dreams, it has been the greatest joy of my life. I don't have much, but what I have, what I am, I want to give to you. Not as an uncle but as a husband. I want to marry you, Chioma. I want to build a life with you. The silence that followed was deafening. Chioma slowly withdrew her hand, her expression shifting from surprise to something that looked disturbingly like pity. Uncle Okoro, she said carefully, I appreciate everything you've done for me and my family. I really do. But, marriage? Between us? She laughed, a nervous, incredulous sound. Uncle, let's be realistic. You're a driver. A common driver. I'm a lawyer now, or I will be soon. I have ambitions, Uncle. I want to live in Ikoyi, drive a Range Rover, marry a man who wears suits and makes decisions in boardrooms. I'm a classic girl now, Uncle. I need a classic man. Each word landed like a physical blow. Okoro felt his chest constrict, his vision blur. Chioma, please, he whispered. I can improve myself. I can find better work. I can. Uncle, it's not just about money, she interrupted, her voice taking on an edge of irritation. It's about class, about compatibility, about the kind of life I want. You're too simple for me. Too poor. Too village. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. We live in different worlds now. But I created your world, Okoro said, his voice breaking. I gave up everything. And I'm grateful, Uncle. But gratitude is not love. Gratitude is not a reason to marry someone. Please, let's not make this awkward. You'll always be Uncle Okoro to me, the man who helped my family. But you can never be more than that. Okoro left the compound that night without saying goodbye to anyone. He walked the 10 kilometers to the motor park in a daze, tears streaming down his face, oblivious to the stares of people he passed. When he finally reached his room in Ajagunal, he collapsed on his thin mattress and wept like he hadn't wept since his mother's death. The weeks that followed were torture. Chief Okafor called him repeatedly, confused by his sudden absence. "My son, what happened? Why did you leave without telling me? Chioma said you both talked and you seemed upset. What is wrong?" Okoro couldn't tell him the truth. How could he explain to the old man that his daughter, the girl they had both sacrificed for, had looked him in the eye and declared him unworthy? Instead he made excuses. Work was demanding, he had fallen ill, he needed space. Chief Okafor, sensing something deeper, traveled to Lagos himself, wheeling himself to Okoro's door. "Tell me the truth, my son," the old man pleaded, tears in his eyes. "What did my daughter say to you?" Finally Okoro broke. He told Chief Okafor everything. The proposal, the rejection, the cruel words about being too poor, too common, too beneath her new standards. Chief Okafor aged 10 years in that moment. His face crumpled, his shoulders sagged. "I am so ashamed," he whispered. "I raised a snake in my bosom. I will talk to her. I will make her see sense. You are worth 10 of those Lagos boys she admires. I will make this right." But Okoro shook his head. "No, Papa. You cannot force love. You cannot force respect. If she cannot see my worth, then I am not meant for her. Please let it go. Let me heal." Chief Okafor returned to the village and confronted his daughter. The argument that ensued became legendary in Umudioka. The old man's voice, weak from years of illness, rose to a roar as he condemned Chioma's ingratitude and pride. "That man gave you his life. He gave you his future. And you threw it in his face because of his job? Because he is not wearing suits? You are not the daughter I raised. You are not the daughter I know." But Chioma was unmoved. "Papa, this is the 21st century. People marry for love, for compatibility. I don't love Uncle Okoro. I can't force myself to love him just because he paid my school fees. I'll pay him back every kobo he spent. But I will not marry him. It is not about the money," Chief Okafor shouted. "It is about character. It is about loyalty. That man is worth more than all the Lagos big men put together." Mama Chioma, caught between her husband's rage and her daughter's stubbornness, could only weep. The compound that had once been filled with laughter became a war zone of bitter silences and angry words. Time, they say, heals all wounds, but it also reveals all truths. 2 years after that devastating night, both Chioma and Okoro had moved on, or so it seemed. Chioma had gotten her dream. She met Chinedu at a law conference in Abuja. Tall, handsome, eloquent, wearing Italian suits and driving a Mercedes G-Wagon. He claimed to be a businessman with interests in oil and gas, real estate and importation. His Instagram page showed a life of luxury. Private jets, 5-star hotels, champagne brunches. He was everything Chioma had dreamed of, everything she had told Okoro she deserved. Their courtship was whirlwind. Expensive dates, trips to Dubai and London, introduction to his circle of influential friends. When he proposed after 6 months, with a diamond ring that cost more than Okoro's annual salary, Chioma said yes without hesitation. The wedding was extravagant, held at the most expensive hotel in Lagos, with a guest list that read like a who's who of Nigerian society. Chief Okafor, though still hurt by his daughter's choices, attended. Mama Chioma wore her finest George wrapper and danced with tears in her eyes, hoping her daughter had finally found happiness. Okoro did not attend. He sent a generous cash gift through a friend and a simple card, wishing you all the happiness you deserve. What Chioma didn't know, what she couldn't have known in her rush to secure her dream life, was that Chinedu's wealth was a facade built on fraud, debt, and deception. The cars were rented, the houses belonged to friends, the business deals were Ponzi schemes that would soon collapse. Chinedu was a master performer, an actor playing the role of a successful man while drowning in debts and desperate schemes. The cracks began to show on their honeymoon. Chinedu's phone rang incessantly with calls from angry creditors. He became irritable, drinking heavily and snapping at Chioma over minor things. When they returned to Lagos, the G-Wagon was repossessed. The apartment he had claimed to own turned out to be a rental he hadn't paid for in 3 months. Chioma, shocked and confused, tried to understand, tried to help, but Chinedu's response was violence. The first slap came during an argument about money. Chioma had asked why the checks he had promised her were bouncing. The sound of his palm against her cheek echoed in their bedroom like a gunshot. She stood there, stunned, her hand on her burning face, unable to process what had just happened. Don't you ever question me? Chinedu snarled. You think because you went to university you can talk to me anyhow? You are my wife. You do as I say. The slaps became punches. The punches became beatings. Chioma learned to hide the bruises with makeup, to lie to her parents about why she couldn't visit, to smile in public while dying inside. But worse than the violence was the discovery of Chinedu's other women. His phone, which he thought he had hidden well, revealed a catalogue of affairs. Students, businesswomen, even married women. He supported some of them financially, money he claimed he didn't have when Chioma asked for basic household needs. One night, after a particularly brutal beating that left her with a broken rib, Chioma lay on the cold bathroom floor and finally allowed herself to think the forbidden thought. I made a mistake. I chose wrong. Uncle Okoro would never have treated me like this. While Chioma's fairy tale was crumbling into a nightmare, Okoro's life was undergoing a remarkable transformation. The pain of rejection, instead of destroying him, had become fuel for change. A month after Chioma's wedding, Okoro met Pastor Emmanuel, a passenger he picked up from the airport. The pastor, impressed by Okoro's politeness and the cleanliness of his cab, struck up a conversation. Okoro, still raw from heartbreak, found himself pouring out his story. Pastor Emmanuel listened without judgment, and when Okoro finished, the older man said something that would change everything. My son, that girl rejected the vessel, not the content. She rejected the wrapper, not the gift. But maybe this is God's way of telling you that you are meant for more than driving other people's cars. You are meant to own your own fleet. The pastor introduced Okoro to a business mentorship program at his church. Okoro threw himself into it with the same dedication he had given to Chioma's education. He learned about entrepreneurship, financial management, investment. He saved every kobo, joined a cooperative society, and within a year, bought his first commercial vehicle, a small bus for the Lagos-Onitsha route. One bus became two. Two became five. Five became a fleet. Okoro discovered that the same discipline that had made him sacrifice for Chioma now made him a shrewd businessman. He reinvested every profit, lived frugally, and within 2 years owned Okoro Transport Services, a company with 30 vehicles and 50 employees. But success wasn't what healed his heart. It was Grace. Grace was a nurse at the hospital where Okoro went for a routine checkup. She was 28, gentle, kind, and possessed a beauty that came from within rather than from makeup and designer clothes. She didn't care that Okoro had once been just a driver. She saw his heart, his integrity, his capacity for love. Their courtship was simple. Evening walks, church services, meals at local bukas. No expensive trips. No flashy displays, just two people discovering that they fit together like pieces of a puzzle. When Okoro proposed, kneeling in her family's modest parlor in Surulere, Grace said yes with tears of joy. Chief Okafor, who had remained in contact with Okoro despite his daughter's betrayal, was invited to the engagement and wept openly. This is the wife you deserve, my son, the old man said. A woman who sees gold even when it is covered in dust. The wedding was scheduled for December. Grace was already 3 months pregnant, carrying the child that Okoro had once dreamed of having with Chioma. But those dreams seemed like ancient history now. He was happy, truly happy for the first time in the year. It was November when Chioma's world finally collapsed completely. Chinedu, drowning in debts from failed business schemes, fled to South Africa, leaving Chioma alone in an apartment they were being evicted from. Her calls went unanswered, her messages unread. She was abandoned, broken. Lying on the floor of the empty apartment, nursing fresh bruises from their final fight, Chioma's mind went to Okoro. Where was he now? Was he still driving? Was he still living in that single room in Ajagunal? Would he, after everything she had done, even listen to her? She called her father. Chief Okafor's voice was cold when he answered, a tone she had never heard before. Papa, I need Uncle Okoro's number, she said, her voice small and defeated. The silence on the other end was long. Then, why Chioma? Why do you need his number? Papa, please. I need to talk to him. You need to talk to him, Chief Okafor repeated, his voice heavy with emotion. The same him you called a common driver? The same him you said was too poor for a classic girl like you? The same him whose heart you broke into pieces? That him. Papa, please. He is getting married, Chioma, Chief Okafor said quietly. In 3 weeks. To a woman who knows his value. To a woman who doesn't measure a man's worth by the car he drives or the clothes he wears. His wife is 6 months pregnant with his child. He is happy, Chioma. Finally, after everything you did to him, he is happy. And you want to disrupt that? Why? Because your Lagos big man has shown you his true colors? Because the life you thought you deserved has turned to ashes in your mouth. Chioma couldn't speak. The weight of her father's words crushed her. I will not give you his number, Chief Okafor continued. I will not let you hurt that man again. You made your choice, my daughter. Now you must live with it. Okoro has moved on. You should do the same. The line went dead. Chioma sat in the darkness of the empty apartment, her phone clutched in her shaking hands, and finally understood the full magnitude of what she had lost. She had traded gold for brass, substance for appearance, love for luxury. And now she was left with nothing but regret and the bitter taste of her own pride. She thought about Okoro's hands, rough and calloused from honest work, hands that had never once been raised against her in anger, hands that had built her future when she had nothing. She thought about his eyes, kind and full of hope, looking at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. She thought about his heart, big enough to care for her entire family, loyal enough to sacrifice his own happiness for hers. And she wept. She wept for the love she had thrown away. She wept for the life she could have had, simple perhaps but filled with genuine care and respect. She wept for the man she had become, shallow, materialistic, blind to what truly mattered. She wept for the child Okoro would have with another woman, a child that could have been hers. But most of all she wept because she knew it was too late. The door she had slammed in Okoro's face was now locked from the other side, and no amount of knocking, no amount of tears, no amount of regret would open it again. 3 weeks later, Okoro married Grace in a beautiful ceremony at Pastor Emmanuel's church. Chief Okafor was there, wheelchair and all, serving as Okoro's father figure. He gave a speech that moved everyone to tears about second chances and about recognizing true value before it's gone. Chioma was not invited. She was not mentioned. It was as if the 4 years of connection between her and Okoro had been erased, written over by a better story, a happier ending, for him at least. Chioma eventually picked up the pieces of her shattered life. She moved back to the village, filed for divorce, and started a small law practice helping people who couldn't afford big city lawyers. She learned slowly and painfully about humility. She learned about service. She learned that a person's worth is not measured in bank accounts or job titles, but in character and integrity. She never married again. Some nights, when the weight of loneliness became too heavy, she would walk past Okoro's family house, now a beautiful mansion he had built for his parents before their passing, and wonder about the parallel life she could have lived. The life where she was the one carrying his child, running his businesses alongside him, being loved and cherished by a man who had proven his devotion long before he had wealth to show for it. But that life belonged to Grace now. And Chioma had only herself to blame. The village elders would tell her story for years to come, a cautionary tale told to young girls getting ready to leave for the city. This is what happens when you mistake the wrapper for the gift, when you chase after glittering things and ignore the gold at your feet. This is the price of pride. And late at night, when Chioma was alone with her regrets, she would whisper into the darkness the words she should have said years ago. Uncle Okoro, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But the darkness never answered back. The end. Moral. The value of a person is not in their job title or bank account, but in their character and heart. Those who chase after material wealth while trampling on genuine love often find themselves rich in regret but poor in happiness. Appreciate those who sacrifice for you before their absence teaches you their worth.